Good evening, everyone. It is May 15, and this is a Jesus short. And I think I love to use the four methods of studying Scripture in Hebrew, which is Peshat, Remez, Drash, and Sod. But part of that is unique, and I'm going to show you something tonight, and I'm going to talk. This is going to come up again in probably about 6 or 8 weeks, because I've got another one that I want to show how important it is. But on how to understand something, Yashar El is the name of the place where Jacob wrestled with Jesus. But Yashar El has specific meaning because you take the letters in Hebrew of a word, and they all have picture. Every letter in Hebrew, there's 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, no vowels. Each one has a picture symbol. So Yashar El, Genesis chapter 32, verse 23. Then he got up that night and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons, and crossed over the ford of the Jabbok. He took them and sent them across the stream, and he sent across whatever he had. So Jacob remained all by himself. Then a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn. And this could just be one of the archangels, but I do think it's probably Jesus. Yashar El, if you break it down, Yah, meaning I am, and I am is not the literal meaning of Yah, I am. It actually means future, but the word for I am is Hayah, which means existing one, which is talking about the future. So they go together. And that's why Yah, I am, Shah, saves, Resh, it can mean also head, but in this case means first. El, meaning of Jehovah. So if I read this under the premise of Sod, which is one of the Jewish, it's one of the disciplines that God gave to the Jewish people. If I read, I am the first of Jehovah who saves. Now, who is that? That's Jesus. So when I see that, and you can do this with so many verses, and it can tell you anything from where God took his vengeance out on Haman for trying to kill the Jews, and then into the future in 1946 caused 11 generals of the German army who forced the Jews into the Holocaust furnaces also were hung. And one of the generals actually said Purim 1946 because it was Purim. Purim is the day that Haman and his 10 sons, 11 of them total, were impaled on a pole. And 11 generals, exactly the amount of years that God predicted, were also hung on Purim. When he saw that he had not overcome him, he struck the socket of his hip. Now he's talking about the angel or Jesus. So he dislocated the socket of Jacob's hip when he wrestled with him. He struck the socket of his hip, so he dislocated the socket of Jacob's hip. When he wrestled with him, then he said, "Let me go, for the dawn has broken." Now, if we look at that, Jesus, and if it is Jesus that's wrestling with him, gave Jacob something to remember him by. Because why was Jacob forced to marry Leah first without knowing it, and then and then he was allowed to take Rachel. Well, you have to go back to when Jacob was born, and when he was born, he was the second one born. He grabbed his brother Esau by the heel, but he was the second one born, which means that Esau should have received the birthright. And instead, he did it out of deceit, and that's why the name Jacob became deceiver. But it really, if you look, they call the 7 years that he had to serve Leah's father to also get Rachel as a wife were called the time of Jacob's trouble, because he had to marry Leah first, and then then her dad allowed Rachel, the younger daughter, to be taken by Jacob as a wife. Now Jacob was bitter about that, but why did it have to happen that way? Because Jacob was also the younger who stole the birthright of Esau. Jacob was trying to steal the birthright of Leah because under their law, the eldest had to be married first before the youngest. So he was trying to take something that he was not legally allowed to take. And Leah's father said, that's not going to happen. So he got Jacob drunk. And then they had relations together that night because Jacob didn't know who he was even laying with. And when he woke up in the morning, all of a sudden he realized he had Leah, but it was too late because he had already defiled her. And under God's law, it wasn't Jewish law yet because there wasn't a Jew yet. But under God's law, if you defile a woman, then you must take her as your wife. So once he did that, Jacob had no option. So as he did to his brother, God did to him. And the rest is history, because 8 of the tribes of Israel came through Leah, not of Rachel. So Rachel had 2 of her own sons plus her concubine, her handmaid, had 2 others with Jacob. So I say all that because it does matter to God the system we use to do things. And Jacob paid for that with 7 years of his life and the hatred of his brother. But I don't know how it would all turned out if Esau would have become the father of the 12 tribes of Israel, and Jacob would have been a foreigner. God had a plan. Anyway, I appreciate you tuning in, and please tell your friends. Check us out at streetlightgr.com, Facebook, and at YouTube at Streetlight Bible Study 4006. And remember to be blessed and to be a blessing. And Dan, are we downloading all these videos onto YouTube? Cool. Very good. Have a good night.